Hi all and welcome to a short video guide on how to use the template business continuity plan that we've established for you as clubs. I'm just going to run through each section quite briefly just so you're all aware of what each section includes and how to complete each section effectively. So this is the dashboard, as we call it. So you've got an opportunity to put your club name in here. Each of these sections here links to one of the tabs listed below. So if we went to the how-to guide, for example, and clicked on there, it would take you to that tab, or you could just scroll across on the tabs and click on the relevant tab that you want to go to. In terms of the how-to guide, this just gives a brief summary of what each tab and each section entails and a bit of a description on how to complete each section. So that should act as a bit of a guide for you as well. In terms of the first section that you get to input any information, so we've got a risk log here for you as clubs to list some of the risks that you may be facing as clubs at the moment. So we've got an example risk there where we could have number of committee members are reduced, maybe because of issues around commitment, maybe when football does return, people aren't able to commit to kind of carrying on with the committee role. So that would be a risk. And then in terms of the categories, there are a number of different categories that you can attach to a particular risk, just to summarize them in a particular area of your club's operation, which we feel will help you as clubs prioritize possibly what area you may need to focus on or areas you need to focus on more. So that particular example would be under the volunteers category. We could have a similar example where possibly a number of players could be reduced, possibly because they've had such a gap without playing, that we do recognise that could be a risk that clubs may face. In here then we've got the opportunity to rate the likelihood of this particular risk happening. So if we went different to 3, so 3 would come out, should come out as an orange rather than a green in the example there. If we had it as a 5, it would highlighted as red. So there's a scale of 1 to 5 in the likelihood and the impact risk log. And obviously if we change this to 1, it would be a low likelihood, and that would be reflected in a green background. So you've got the opportunity to rate those risks in terms of the likelihood and the impact. Then you have the opportunity to start to populate the risk table based on the color coding that exercise that you've just done. And one of the things I would suggest you do as clubs is to try and categorize the risks in terms of the categories that we've identified in the risk log. So if you didn't want to just type in all of the risks, you could just try to categorize based on the category drop down here what the overall risk table risk would be for you as a club under communications or community engagement, or you could simply just populate each individual risk, whatever works for you and whatever works best for you as a club. And the individual risks you could just populate here. There are bullet points that you can type in and identify where on this particular table that risk would fit. And this may help you better visually to assess what some of your red risks are, some of those high likelihood, high impact risks would be. So you can again help to prioritize and maybe divert more attention and focus to those particular risks rather than in some of the green areas here where there's possibly a low likelihood, and even if it did happen, the impact would be low as well. As we move forward to the cash flow section, this is where you can start to detail some of your income and your expenditure. We've put some examples here of what some of those income streams may look like, but you can change and amend these. There's also opportunities for you to add new ones in that we haven't added in as examples for you. In terms of commentary, you could add in just some further detail in this section around whether there's a tiered membership fee system for your youth males depending on what age groups. So you could add that kind of detail in the commentary section. In terms of the forecast, you could detail what you'd be expected to generate in terms of membership for this particular season. And then this is where you'd put the income that you've received to date, or possibly the date when when the lockdown started and when football activity stopped. This would then calculate automatically what the difference between your projected income and your actual income for that particular income stream. And then this is where, again, you'll be in a position where you can rate through 1 to 5 rating, 1 being low, 5 being high. Again, the likelihood and the impact of that income stream, or not being able in a position to generate further income under that income stream. As we move down to the expenditure section, again, a very similar process. So you would detail your expenditure. Again, we've put some examples in here for you, but you've got the option to put some different ones in, some new ones in if there are things that aren't relevant. And you can also have the opportunity to delete the ones that are already in place if they're not relevant to you as well, if you wanted to make it a shorter page. Again, in the commentary, you would detail a little bit more about the circumstances of that particular facility hire, for example. Again, you put in the forecast of what you'd be spending in that particular area and what you've spent to date, and what the difference would be calculated automatically. And again, you'd be in a position to rate the likelihood of that further expenditure and what possible impact that further expenditure would have, particularly if you're in a fixed agreement, so around utility costs or rent. You know, there'd be high likelihood, and possible impact could be quite high as well, because we're aware that clubs aren't generating a huge amount of income to cover those costs at the moment. So that would be an example of being one that would probably be between 4 and 5 on both of those. As we move forward to the financial risk table, again, similar to the risk table generally, you have the opportunity here to populate each individual income or expenditure item, and we would encourage you to detail them as separate items here rather than categorize them as a group. This will help you, again, prioritize what you would need to maybe focus your attention on, and where you'd need to divert attention towards, particularly in relation to applying for government support or any other financial support that's available, i.e. through Sport Wales or any other grants. And then the final 2 sections are what you can do now in terms of the action planning. So what can you put in place in terms of actions to mitigate some of the risks that you've identified? So you can go back to the risks log, copy and paste those into here, and then really start to identify what some of those actions could be for you to mitigate those risks, and then start to allocate who or maybe what section of your club would be responsible for moving that particular action forward. Again, you could put a timeline on when you want some progress to be made, and then detail what particular support would be required. And then moving forward in terms of action planning and looking ahead, really start to identify what can you look to continue to do during this particular period, particularly around engagement with members and volunteers, continuing to engage them, how you do that in terms of digital streams and platforms. There are a number of different options. What can you start doing? So again, that might link into to those digital streams and digital engagement and activities that a number of clubs have already taken on board. I would encourage clubs to be really specific and prioritise 1 or 2 items in particular in terms of starting new things, because you want to really identify what will have the biggest impact, and being really focused. So really start to think about what will have the biggest impact and keep them to a small number. You don't want to spread yourselves too thinly in terms of the actions and the things that you'll start to do during this period. The final thing within this club business continuity plan is just a resources section that just support and signpost you to some additional information that may be relevant during this process, or just may be relevant to you while we move forward during this particular period that we're all in, and and dealing with. Some of the information may be relevant to you now, it may be relevant to you at a later date. But we'd encourage all clubs to have a look at the information that is available and continue to review some of the information that is available, because it is an ever-changing situation and set of circumstances that we all have to keep our eyes peeled and be aware of as much as up-to-date information as possible. If you have got any questions or would like any further information on the club business continuity plan, then do not hesitate to contact me. So my name is Aled Lewis. I'm the club development lead for the FAW Trust. You'll find my details on the website, or if you wanted to contact info@fawtrust.cymru, you'll be signposted to me then through the central email system. I hope that's been useful for you, and as I said, if you've got any questions or would like any further support, feel free to contact me. I'd also advise that this is a template that we've tried to keep it as simple as possible, but if you've got your own templates and you want to use those, then feel free to do so. It's up to you as clubs. We just felt we wanted to share a template with you that you could complete if you wanted to, if you didn't have one already and you wanted to get an understanding of what a club business continuity plan could look like.